Welcome once again to the Retirement Blueprint Show with Tim Lofton of Axum Planning and Wealth. He's a retirement income specialist. I'm Spike Spangle, and every single week I'm going to ask him what's on your mind this week, Tim.
Well, I want to get through our annual checklist.
Oh, okay.
Okay, whether you're that end of the year kind of person where you're like, all right, I want to put my plan together for next year, or you're a first of the year planner, now's the time to start thinking about some of these things. So if we can just kind of go through as many of them as we can get to, Spike, I think it'll be helpful.
Rapid fire, annual checklist, what needs to be on your mind when it comes to your retirement planning. We'll hit as many topics as we can in a 27.5-minute period. Here we go. One of the first things, especially where we think this is going to be broadcasting this year, is let's start with that healthcare and retirement, reviewing the Medicare A, B, C's, D's, E, F, G's,
Just say the alphabet of Medicare.
Just say all of it now,
all
right?
All of them, all the letters.
How, in what capacity do you help folks with this Medicare? Because during that time of year, you start to see all kinds of commercials.
Well, it's not just commercials, but people go out to their, if you're turning 65 and this is your first go round, your mailbox is about to blow up with mail of everybody under the sun telling you about how they can help you with Medicare. Now, the good news is that you don't pay for that. When somebody helps you with Medicare, they're paid by the insurance company if they're doing a supplement or whatever. But what I'm talking about specifically is the impact to Social Security. A lot of times we think about, well, my Medicare is covered by Social Security, but if you were counting on getting that whole Social Security check, you could be $200, $300, $400 short a month from what you thought you were going to get.
This is huge math, and we talk about just any one number in a calculation ruining the answer to the math problem. Let's just assume a very simple number. Let's say you're going to get $2,500 a month in Social Security, and you've extrapolated that out with your life savings. Oh, that should last until 30, 35 years.
Right.
But most people take their Social Security or take that Medicare from their Social Security.
Yes.
So you're coming up $175, $200 shallow between you and a spouse, $400.
Right.
You're getting the math wrong.
That's $5,000 a year potentially different. And then a lot of times they don't calculate in that supplement. Most people want to have a supplement. The good news, a lot of times when we talk about healthcare and retirement, people are always worried. They're like, what if I get, this major surgery or a disease or something that I have to take, a lifetime of prescription for, and it's, really expensive. If you have Medicare and a supplement, you don't have a real risk there. We had a client, he was actually a doctor, had a heart transplant. That's a 7-figure surgery. His out-of-pocket was $6,000. Wow. So when I say that you are in good hands with Medicare and a supplement, you are indeed in good hands, but I still have to calculate that cost. And if you look at a couple $100 for Medicare and $200 or $300 for a supplement, you're talking about, $400 or $500 per person. It's still an expense that you need to plan for in retirement.
Okay, and with all of that stuff you see at the end of the year, do you have somebody in-house who can help review? I just want to make sure we're not calling some 800 number at the bottom of a flyer that came in the mail. Want to make sure that we're getting the right drug supplements, that it's actually worth it, we're not overspending, being sold a package. We usually know that our healthcare costs don't go down, so it's important to be covered, but do you mind evaluating some of these choices?
No, we have a dedicated resource that we have to review exactly what Spike was talking about. It's not as easy as just saying, one size fits all, you're going to get this plan or that plan. You have to look at, what doctors do you go to? Are they in or out of that coverage? What, prescriptions are you already taking? A lot of those things, some people need or are hoping to get maybe, help with their hearing and want a hearing aid. Some plans offer that, some plans don't. Some people want that Silver Sneakers program where you get free gym membership. All of these things need to be evaluated before you jump into a certain coverage or a certain company.
All right, we're doing the retirement annual checklist right here. So whether it's end of the year, beginning of the year, some of the things we want you to think about. Like you said, some folks like to plan this all at the end of the year, some in the beginning. But let's look at this, the retirement planning for late starters.
Yeah.
This has been a big topic on my heart lately, and for you as well. There's so many of you who feel like you're behind, who might never be able to retire, and there's a lot that you can do. There's a lot where we can be catching up. And in fact, it's one of the things that we want to suggest. Looking at our retirement accounts, maybe we can catch up a lot more if we came up a little bit shallow, or there's usually adjustments to your 401k contributions that you can do. I think it's going to go up for next year and the year following, right? Shouldn't we review those?
Yes. So if you're not maximizing what you're putting into your plans right now, if you're over the age of 50, you can put up to $30,500 into your 401k. That number is going to be increasing. It does typically with inflation every year. The other thing that we can look at is, how are you invested? Have you maybe gotten too conservative, or maybe are you being too aggressive? Does your plan offer things that can give you a guaranteed income? If not, you may have an option to be able to make a change. One of the things that a lot of people do as they get closer to that retirement, after 59 and a half, I have access to do an in-service rollover. I can actually move my money from my 401k into an IRA and gain a lot of different options that maybe weren't available to me inside of that 401k plan. And that doesn't keep you from continuing to save. So when I do that in-service rollover, I'm still able to contribute to my 401k. I'm just taking the money that was already there and potentially looking at other options that would be maybe more conducive to my stage of life.
And part of that, I think, is because I don't think your 401k providers are calling you and saying, hey, Bob, hey, Sally, did you realize you're 2 years away from retirement? You're 3 years away?
Yeah, that online calculator, Spike. I mean, that's pretty powerful.
At least you can go on there and, figure you can slide a little dial and go, if I make these returns. We need the personalized advice. And for some reason, there's a big separation there. You'll have folks who will tell you how you can log back into your account or see, but they're not going to tell you how much you need to save along with your spouse and everyone else.
Well, they're not going to cross that line of giving you advice. It's the same thing with Social Security. Social Security will tell you, here's what you get. They're not going to suggest when you should take it. They're not going to tell you the different options that you have in taking it. They're simply going to give you the answers to your questions as they pertain to, if I take my retirement now, what will I get? And they're not going to ask you questions like, did you previously go through a divorce? Were you married for more than 10 years? Maybe you could take half of your spouse's. They're not going to look at your current spouse's Social Security. Maybe half of theirs is more than all of yours. Those are the things that only come from specialized, having actual conversations that are intentional about retirement planning.
Tim, thank you very much. You're watching retirement income specialist Tim Lofton of Axon Planning and Wealth. We're trying to, as quickly as we can, go through our annual checklist. How do you build and preserve wealth for your retirement years? But you might be asking yourself, the who? Tim Lofton, you've been watching the program for a couple of years. He actually put together a little bit of a biography of himself and why he came into the business. Please watch this message.
It goes back actually when I was 11 years old. That was the first time I discovered what not having money felt like. I remember being in Sunday school class, and one of the parents came in to let us know that the ski trip, which was kind of a rite of passage at 12, was coming up. And so I got my permission slip, and class got out, and I was that kid. I was like running through the church and up the stairs and weaving in and out of people, and got into the sanctuary, and I looked at the very back of the sanctuary, and I saw my mom, and she was there with 2 or 3 other ladies, and they were talking. And I took off at a dead sprint, and I'm waving this piece of paper and talking a mile a minute, and I get to her, and she's like, wait, honey, what is it that you're saying? I said, Mom, I said, I can go. Like, I'm gonna be 12, I can go. And she's like, go to what? I'm like, the ski trip, the youth group ski trip. And I'll never forget, she got down on one knee and she wrapped her arms around me and she said, baby, she said, we can't afford that this year. And it wasn't the disappointment of not being able to go on the trip. It was the look in her eyes that she couldn't afford it and that she couldn't do that for me. And I really think that put me on the path of having a heart for helping people get to retirement, to be able to stay retired and to live their best life. And that all starts with advice. And that's what I chose to do for a living. When interest rates are low, you might be able to refinance your home, your car, even your credit cards. Yet, when interest rates go up, it may make sense to refinance your retirement. Higher interest rates could provide income opportunities you may not be aware of. Find out if a retirement refi could work for you. Call now to claim your complimentary Refi Your Retirement review.
Welcome back. You're watching Tim Lofton of Axum Planning and Wealth. This is your Retirement Blueprint Show. I am Spike Spangle. We're talking about your retirement wealth building, asset preservation, building and growing checklist for the year, whether it's end of the year, beginning of the year. We're trying to hit as many topics for you to think about as possible. The investment strategy. I mean, isn't that something we want to do end of the year? Should we be looking at comparisons and seeing, maybe what other platforms might be able to produce higher returns? Is that legitimate going into retirement?
Yeah, I think it's a fair time to assess how things are going. And again, it's not necessarily looking at just how the last 6 months or 8 months went or the last couple of years, but I think it's important to understand, historically, the path that you're currently on, how does that compare with other options, other things that are maybe available to you? We say all the time, you don't know what you don't know. And a lot of times we hear from clients say, well, you know what, I think my person's doing all right. We made X amount of percent, but there's no context to that. Let's say that you made 7 or 8%, but the market did 15 or 20, and you were taking the same risk. Wouldn't you want to know, for the level of risk that you're taking, what kind of returns should you expect, and have kind of maybe a second opinion on exactly what is out there that maybe you don't know about?
I have an important question, though. How do I know that I don't know? I mean, maybe I think I know that I don't know.
Well, and that's a great question. I don't know if you don't know, which is really complicated. Everybody.
We can play who's on first all day long
here, right?
But it's true. There's a lot of folks who they might think they know. They might be looking at it, and that's
right.
We hear that kind of stuff all the time. It almost goes back to the gambler's fallacy.
Well,
I did a lot on this one bet over here. What about the 4 other bets that you're not telling everybody you lost on?
Well, somehow Vegas builds hotels, and I don't think they make it from people winning, right? A lot of times when we're listening to people make comparisons on their returns, they'll say, I got this amount of return, but it depends how much risk you're taking to really gauge if that return is relevant. So for example, if somebody has a 60-40 portfolio, 60% stocks, 40% bonds, they're not going to have the same return as the S&P 500. So that's not a fair comparison. What we're offering here is, let's do a fair comparison for the risk that you're currently taking. What type of return would you or should you expect from that amount of risk?
And would you say at Axum Planning and Wealth that you're always striving and swinging for the fences for the highest returns? Is that the goal for everybody?
I don't think that's the goal for anyone, Spike. Swinging for the fences, while that sounds good in your 20s and 30s, swinging for the fences in retirement is a pretty dangerous game.
Yeah, throw the back out.
We want to swing for certainty. That's what we want to swing for in retirement.
Nice.
We want to know what's going to happen. We want to know how we're protected on the income side against falling markets, bad economies, inflation. Those are the ideas that come from giving jobs to the money. I know we talk about that a lot on the show, but it's so important. It's such a different way of looking at things. The income piece has to be secure. It has to be, to some degree, guaranteed. I need to know what's going to happen. Once I figure that out, it allows me to take risk on the other side, because volatility doesn't hurt me, because it doesn't take away from my income and my lifestyle.
This speaks to a message that was about 3 or 4 minutes ago on the refinancing your retirement. And for a lot of folks out there, and myself included until I heard it, refinancing your retirement, what does that mean? We're all accustomed to refinancing a mortgage, right? If you had high interest rates, the interest rates come down. So in fact, maybe if you bought a home a year ago, you might be able to get a lower interest rate, possibly. Probably not, but over a 5 or 10 year period. But the refinancing your retirement it kind of works in the opposite way. It brings me next on the checklist of taking a look at your interest rate tools. It will include the A word, and I will watch out for the FCC here. Which A word am I talking about?
I think you're talking about annuities.
Yes, oh, good, okay, you said the right one.
You know, when we do talk about annuities on the show, and the reason is why we bring this up is a couple of things. The first one is, if you spend much time on Google, and you can do that right now, I know you're probably sitting there with your phone in your hand, you can Google, why are annuities bad? And there will be just pages of information. But here's the thing. Put in there why annuities are good, how they help. $400 billion, that's what we're on track for this year going into annuities. Why is that? People want certainty in retirement. They want guaranteed income. They want to remove the risk from that part of the portfolio. And by having a tool like that, that liberates the rest of those dollars for growth. Please hear me. I am not telling you to go out and buy an annuity. What I'm suggesting is it's something, a tool that may be worth taking a look at. The only way that you know whether or not that would be appropriate is to sit down with somebody, whether it's us or someone like us, that does comprehensive retirement planning. Let us take a look at what your goals are and determine if that's a fit or if it's not a fit, because there's both people out there right now.
Right, and as you have said, you even simplified it for me. Even if you just cut your savings in half, you've got money for growth. You've got some for income right away. You've got your emergency bucket as well. But if the job is for income, what is the best tool that you can find out there to create an income that you can't outlive? Do your own research, folks. I'm telling you, America is speaking on its own. According to LIMRA, billions and billions of dollars have flowed into these tools over the last 3 years. This could be also interest rate driven, but that's exactly why you put together that message on refinancing your retirement. So part of the checklist, review the tools you're using.
Review the tools. Take a look at your toolbox. More importantly, take a look at the toolbox of where you currently have your money. Is their toolbox robust? Can they work with anybody, or are they limited to who they can work with? Or is the name of your investment the same name that's on the company outside, right? I mean, understand that, you know, when you start talking about fiduciary responsibility, and that's something that our firm takes very seriously, it's about not just giving you something that's suitable, but what is the best thing for you, the best fit. It might be doing exactly what you're currently doing. What does it hurt to get a second opinion, to find out for sure if you are on track for retirement?
All it takes is a phone call right now. We do have folks standing by. You can dial that phone number down on the bottom of the screen. You'll set up an appointment. You can get started on your own retirement blueprint. In fact, you'll sit down with someone who will take you through the annual checklist. We'll start these conversations for you. But dial the phone number, get started right now. One of the things that's on the checklist, now this might be a smaller segment of our audience, is if you have not turned on your Social Security, it might not be as simple as you think. Don't go anywhere. Tim has a message on how you need to be thinking about Social Security.
Social Security is easy, right? The question is, should I take it now or later? Well, there are dozens of ways that you can take Social Security if you're single, and hundreds if you're married. You've paid into the system for decades. Don't you want to make sure that you optimize your retirement income? Depending on how you've set up your other retirement accounts, your Social Security could either be tax-free or up to 85% taxable. It's not as simple as it might seem. So give us a call today. Let us uncomplicate Social Security for your retirement. Give us a call at 855-684-3485, or you can scan the QR code below to schedule your complimentary review. You know, one of the things that we're seeing in the office today is people are coming in with statements that are down 15, 20, 30%, and they're still needing that same income withdrawal, which means the percentage they're taking out from their portfolio is now higher, which increases that risk of running out of money in retirement. This is where planning for volatility really comes into play, and it's the biggest shift that we're making for new people coming in our office, trying to help them recover what they've lost, but also make sure that they don't run into that same situation situation down the road. When you're looking at retirement planning versus pre-retirement planning, that's the difference. One is about accumulation. It's about growing your money over time. Once you get to retirement, it's about distribution, which is a different strategy. At our office, what we focus on is giving jobs to the money. It's making sure that the dollars that we need to produce income have that volatility removed. That allows us to take risk in other areas because we have our income figured out. If volatility has been an issue, if you're looking at your statement right now and it's down 15, 20, 30%, do you know how you're going to get back? Do you know what you're going to do in the future if that happens again? If you don't, sit down with us for a complimentary review. Let us design a retirement blueprint to help you retire and, more importantly, stay retired.
Tim, I was glad to see both of those messages there. I was on Social Security and then also talking about the market volatility. That's what we were just saying. Yeah. Very simple math on this. If you have 100% of your money, if the market drops 50%, you've told me this before, how much do we need to get back up to full?
Well, think about it. If I'm down 50%, and I just go up 50%, that doesn't get me back, does it?
Yeah, that only gives you back up to 75% of where you were. So it's, again, all of that mental math. You don't know what you don't know. Have a professional review this all with you, so especially your investment strategy. Let's talk about, again, we're doing the retirement checklist, our annual checklist, many things we want you to think about, making sure that we get our taxes reviewed. Now, is this bringing our box of stuff into that green building over there before April 15th? Is that what you mean?
No, that's tax preparation. That's a different thing. So a lot of times when we say the word tax planning, I think a lot of times the viewers say, you mean getting all my stuff together, I take it to my CPA and, he tells me, what my bill's gonna be or what my refund's gonna be. That's not tax planning. That is looking at the here and now, and what is the minimum amount of taxes I can pay this year. What we're looking for in tax planning is the long game. We want to know what is the least amount of taxes I can pay over the next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. And those strategies are absolutely perfect right now in timing to start looking at, is there things I should do before the end of the year to take advantage of the lower tax brackets that we have? We understand taxes are set to sunset December of 2025. We don't know what's going to happen. We have no idea, but we do know what the rules are today. So we have a couple of years that we could make an impact on our tax plan. Isn't it make sense to have somebody sit down and take a look? Let's just understand that when you do tax planning, a lot of times it feels like I'm paying more taxes up front. But when you look at it over the long period of time, we see people saving hundreds of thousands, some case $1 million in taxes over time by doing the right strategies at the right time. That's
a mentality that I know that I've had ever since I was young. In fact, I think there are so many Americans out there who look forward to maybe even getting that tax relief. You get something, you're like, oh, now I can take our vacation. I don't think we should be walking in and saying, I want to pay as little in taxes. For the retiree, the pre-retiree, you're trying to get kind of a mental shift of, should we be thinking about how to pay taxes lower 20 years from now?
Well, one of the big questions that we have to answer, we have been taught, put as much in these tax-deferred accounts as we can. 401ks, max them out, put that money in. We talk about that on the show, catching up and getting prepared. But here's the question that you have to be able to answer. Are you going to use that money? When you're retired, do you already have a pension and Social Security and that's going to be extra? Because that is a different tax strategy. And so we can end up with a bit of a tax bomb if we're not careful by making just the wrong decisions at the wrong time. One of the things that we've seen come out of, and this is, with our checklist, looking at 401ks, a lot of the 401ks today have that Roth option. Now, I pay taxes on it going in, but that money grows tax-free. That can be a huge advantage, a great shift as I'm already maybe 10, 15, 20 years in to my planning and saving for retirement to start creating a tax-free bucket inside of that savings program.
And if you're late 50s right now, even early 60s, maybe going to be working for another 4, 6, 8 years, is it worth it to start that Roth 401k now?
Well, the answer to that question comes from sitting down with us, because I don't want to give advice over the TV. I don't know who's watching us right now, but most likely, because it's going to give me tax flexibility. We talk about that term a lot in the office of what if they do raise income taxes? What would we do? Well, maybe we would go to this tax-free bucket to help mitigate some of that tax consequence in those years where we have higher taxes. And then when taxes go down, maybe we leave that money to grow. Having those options, being able to have, different levers that I can pull to turn on income is super helpful.
Tim, we've got 2 minutes left in the show, and we've got 17 more topics to cover on our retirement checklist. Perfect. We'll get to all of them. No, this one, the role of real estate in retirement. I was surprised that you had this on your checklist.
Yeah.
I thought we pay off the mortgage, and in retirement, the home is less expensive than during our mortgage years.
Okay. Should I talk about Mr. Ramsey? No, I'm not going to talk about Mr. Ramsey on TV. But here's the thing. If you've got a mortgage at 2.5%, 3%, I'm telling you that paying it off probably doesn't make sense. The other common thought process here is that you're going to downsize. I'm going to go to a smaller house, kids are out. The problem is the house gets smaller, the cost of the house not so much. A lot of times we're selling our house and we're spending the same or even more. One of the common things that people forget about when you downsize is your spouse is going to want new furniture. I don't know if you knew that or not.
It was the first thing in my head,
You cannot
actually,
use
Tim.
the same furniture and decorating. It's got to be new decorating. And a lot of times the guys don't think about that going into that downsizing. It's a surprise.
But even the cost of moving, even if it's in the same town, the cost of moving trucks and doing those things, setting all that stuff up. But the other thing today, with some of the weather events we've seen all around the country this year, do you think it could affect home insurance prices everywhere?
It absolutely is going to, not to the same degree as we're seeing on the coasts, but, weather is a factor, and weather factors into those insurance costs. And to some degree, I think even in Ohio, we're going to continue to see that.
I think it's going to affect Americans across the country. Folks, we're trying to go through as much of the retirement checklist or annual checklist of things you need to think about, whether it's end of the year planning or beginning of the year planning. It might seem a little overwhelming. You might not have all of these on your own checklist, but that's why you want to sit down with a retirement planning specialist who does this every single day in their offices. You can call the phone number down here, get started on your own, no-cost retirement blueprint. Thanks for watching. We'll be back next week.